All right, so full disclosure, when I sat down to make these notes, I was going to try and do a revamp of my favorite books of all time. That was the goal, that was the intent. I will link my favorites playlist down below. It has favorite authors, standalone series. It's from 2 or 3 years ago, so like it's obviously not like perfectly up to date. But in general, they do still hold a lot of my favorites because that video is just not happening right now. My brain was like too overwhelmed. I did earlier this week, you saw, I put out my auto-buy authors, which is different from favorite authors, but it's still just like a source of excitement to me. I really liked making that. And in a similar vein, while I was collecting data to try and figure out how to even parse things down to a top 10, I decided instead, let's talk about 10 series starters that got me super excited to continue series. Either I did continue them, or I like bought them right away, or they made me want to make a spoiler vlog, or it became my entire personality. I don't know, that type of energy. These first books in series really brought that to the table. And I think it's fun to focus on that because I always talk about how I'm an endings person, and maybe one day I'll do my favorite series enders and all of that. But these are just strong starts. They hooked me. I got incredibly excited. And the excitement, I think, for all of these has so far been warranted. Like, all of these are series that I shout about from the rooftops that I'm currently really enjoying. I think there's 2 that I haven't finished yet and 2 that are ongoing, but the rest are finished and I've read all of it. So we're going to get into it. And not necessarily would I like die on the hill of the first book is the best in the series for these. It's just that like a standout moment for me was like, oh my god, this is the start. I must finish it. And then other disclaimer that it is spring/summer-ish time. It is a Saturday when I'm filming that is glorious outside, so people are doing yard work, as is their right. And you may or may not hear it. I think my microphone won't pick it up, but just, if you hear a rumble, someone's mowing their lawn. All right, so let us get into it. This is not in any particular order except for I think I saved my favorite series start for the last book. Maybe. I'm really bad at ranking these because it's like really hard comparing different arcs that have different emotional experiences, but we're getting into it. The first one that I just have written down is Jade City by Fonda Lee. I read the first 3 chapters of this and instantly bought the rest of the books in the series. Well, okay, I say that. Jade Legacy wasn't out when I read Jade City, but I instantly, I was reading a library copy, and I went and I bought hardbacks of Jade City and Jade War, and then I got annoyed enough that at the time, they weren't doing glossy for all of them. The, print-as-you-go version of Jade City went matte, and Jade War was glossy, and so then I had to, figure out how to repurchase Jade City so it would match. It was a whole thing because I was obsessed. And I just think Jade City is such a strong introduction to this world, to the family. It has a contained arc in it that I think works really well in terms of stakes for some of the family members. It feels like the first season of A Song of Ice and Fire or the first season of Succession or something like that, where you're just everything is happening all the time, and I didn't know it was allowed to happen. And it's just really fun. If you somehow haven't heard of the Greenbone Saga, it is a late 20th century inspired secondary world fantasy where we have these kind of mafia families on this island continent, and some people have this genetic ability to manipulate jade to make themselves stronger and things like that, and some people can't. And so there's all these different things, and that's how it plays into the hierarchy. There is a messy history for how we even got to this power system, and we're following specifically one of the ruling families and the messiness that comes with a ruling family that probably didn't get to where they are from completely good means. It's a mobster movie. I haven't watched or read The Godfather, but I get those types of vibes, and it's just really solid. For me, the writing style just worked instantly. The next one is a series I'm still continuing, actually continued a bit today, so it's fresh in my mind. And this is Shards of Honor, the first book that I read in the Forgoskin saga. There's a couple jumping in points, but chronologically, this is one of the earlier in-world chronological books to start with. And I remember reading this like a child who did not want to go to Easter dinner. Literally, I was reading this Easter weekend. And we had to go see family, which is totally fine. But I just wanted to finish my book because I also didn't, have to go to work. And I was just but this is so good. Who is this Cordelia and why is she stealing my heart? And then I just spent an absurd amount of time trying to figure out, should I own all 16 to 17 of these books? in paperback or hardback. And the only thing that stopped me, besides, I guess, money, is like, it's really hard to get sets that match. And I'm like a matchy person. Because there's a lot of them that aren't in print in their paperback form. So you would have to buy it through the hardcover. And did I like the covers? And this is the type of stuff I was thinking because that first book was so strong for me. The Verkosigan books are really fun so far. I mean, obviously there's 17 books and I'm only like 6 or 7 into it at this point. But it follows this universe and some reoccurring characters and family lines. And it's just a messy universe. And we have these little adventure stories. And a lot like T. Kingfisher, Bujold is really good at getting you really attached to characters quite quickly. So even though I think if I were to explain the plots of each book, they wouldn't sound very intriguing. But within a chapter and a half, I was completely enamored with our 2 main leads. They were stranded on a planet kind of like Star Trek, and they need to like move along. And then they're also from 2 completely different factions in the galaxy, and like how that's gonna work itself out. I think it's really well done. I haven't been disappointed yet as I've continued, but that start was just like, so this is who I am now. This is what I've been looking for. Backlist, adventure, space opera, science fiction. Here we come. So good. And then next up, this is I don't know if it's an unpopular opinion, but it's one of my favorite books in the Sapphic Trifecta, which if you're new, like a couple years ago, there were 3 books that came out and they were just called the Sapphic Trifecta. They weren't even from the same publisher. 2 of them were Orbit and 1 was Tor. But my favorite is The Unbroken by C.L. Clarke. And it's kind of the stepchild of the 3. People generally don't like it as much, and it wasn't in as many prominent marketing locations, so it doesn't get as many ratings on Goodreads or anything like that. But I love this, and I reread it, and I loved it just as much. It was so good. And this one impresses me just because it has tropes that don't normally work for me. I'm not low magic, military and sci-fi and rebellion, not sci-fi, military fantasy and rebellion fantasy don't always work for me, but this one works. It worked for me. I read it so quickly. I was obsessed. I was chatting with people. I was like, have you read this book? Are you reading it right now? There was like maybe a buddy read. I was so into it. So I've continued on with The Faithless. I am eagerly awaiting the 3rd book. So for me, this was an incredibly strong start. I know some people have issues with the pacing and the writing style. For me, it clicked 100%, and I was just all in. Next up is the other book from the Sapphic Trifecta that I really liked, and that's The Jasmine Throne. This is another one where I really got hooked into the atmosphere pretty much right away. I remember I read this on a really hot, humid day. And this is a very hot, humid world. So I was already vibing with the setting. I was empathetically with the characters. I had a fan hitting me. I was just drenched. And I was reading this and I was just like, oh, I love these tropes. Like, we got some reluctant hero. We have some cursed hidden magic. We have some politics to unpack. And I really love our 3 female leads and the messiness and the different ways of being strong. Because I think sometimes a danger of doing feminist literature is sometimes, you accidentally fall too hard on the just not like other girls trope, or to be strong, you're acting like the man. And no, here we have plenty of strong characters, and they're strong for different reasons, and I really like it. And this one has this like claustrophobic intimacy that I love to sit in. So strong. The 3rd book comes out this November. I cannot wait. We are going to be rereading it in my Patreon, and I cannot wait. Oh, I'm just so excited. The next one, this is one of the ones where like it became my personality. This was a became my personality one. Ruin of Kings, the first book in Chorus of Dragons. I don't even think it's my favorite book in the series, but by page 5, yeah, completely sold. I immersion read it with the audiobooks. I love the audiobooks. They have multiple narrators per book. Yeah, I just love it so much. This is such good modern epic fantasy. Like, at least for me, like, I think it has a really good blend of, you want to have a sprawling cast? We got a sprawling cast. You want to explore a world? We're going to explore a world. Do you want to have different touches on certain themes that are relevant today? Sure, we do that. Do you want to have bombastic magic? Yes. Do you want things to be a little soap opera and confusing? Yes. It's so fun. I love this series so much. I have a should you read for it if I'm not being remotely helpful or coherent at this moment. Part of that is the first book. And I was extra surprised because at the time when I read this first book, for the most part, the people in my circles who had read it had not had a fun time with it. So I was a little, apprehensive, like, am I going to have fun with it? I wanted to try it. I was instantly obsessed. Some people didn't like the non-linear storytelling of it all. I liked it. I don't need non-linear storytelling, but I was cool with it. I've named one of my cats after the main character in this series. So, like, that's where I'm at. It's my personality. This first book is where it began, and it has not ended for me since. I think of rereading this series every time someone picks it up. Every time someone mentions in my comments they have read this because of me and they're having a great time, I'm like, should I? Should I? And, like, for someone who's not necessarily always into the high action, big magic tropes of fantasy, this is like made me go, yeah, it's so cool when things are cool. Like, within 100 pages, you meet a dragon. Okay? We don't have to wait for the dragon. The dragon's there. Like, so good. And the stakes are awesome. And it's just, each book's very fun. It's very fun. I like the footnotes quite a bit. If you don't like footnotes, you might still like the footnotes in this one. It's really good. It's really good. I have cackled. I have screenshot many a footnote passage to share with friends in this one. It's so good. All right, another first book that, like, I became obsessed with and instantly bought the rest of the series. So this was, like, pretty much an instant, oh, yeah, I'm going to buy the rest now. Too Like the Lightning. This is very new. I've only read the first 2 books. I've started the third since filming this video. And, yeah, that first book, pretty much within, like, 2 chapters, I started spoiler vlogging it. I was like, oh, I have thoughts. I have so many thoughts. What is happening? And this is definitely a case of, like, this world is so cool. Like, the imagination that went into thinking of this type of utopia government, but then also choosing to tell a story about, like, a turning point without telling you, the reader, the turning point. Like, the book is written for someone in world, so they know a bit more than you, but you get this kind of delayed dramatic irony, per se. I don't know. Like, it's so fun, the tension of that and the reveals, and just, I had a really fun time also with the writing style. This is another one where I was surprised because a lot of people don't like this book because of the writing style. But for me, luckily, it just worked. It just flowed in my head in a way where it made sense. I liked Mycroft as the narrator, even though I'm still unpacking who that person is. And sometimes they wax poetically about philosophy a smidge longer than I would like. But it's really actually not that bad. I have read way more indulgent works when it comes to philosophy and navel-gazing. So the small bits where it does it there, when it isn't engaging to me, it's not that big a deal. So yeah, I had a blast. I'm continuing to have a very good time, so it hasn't let me down yet. And then another one that made me spoiler vlog, and not even for my patrons. Like, this was for my main channel. I have actually spoiler discussions for all 3 of these books, but Ship of Magic by Robin Hobb gave me so many extreme emotions in this first book that I needed to shout at a camera. That's not who I normally am. I don't know, I'm not usually brought to that much emotion unless it's a musical or something like that. But Ship of Magic, there are characters I want to shove off boats that I want to punch, and I just had so many thoughts. Like, the world is not fair is the theme of Robin Hobb, and it is very strongly present here. And it's just the tension, like, so I think if you've been on the internet, you know, don't read the back of books for Robin Hobb books. They kind of spoil things because, like, I feel like they want to make synopses. But sometimes a Robin Hobb book, not a lot happens. So when you read a synopsis, like, oh, you're introducing an idea that hasn't happened for, like, 200 pages into this main book. And that's kind of what happens here. But, like, even if you hadn't read the synopses, you know when you read the beginning of this book that what you want to happen is not going to happen. And our characters are going to be distraught and upset. But once we pull off that Band-Aid, I get to watch all my characters suffer and be miserable and grow, and it's oddly amazing. Like, I really love that entire trilogy, and Ship of Magic just, like, hooked me instantly. And it was so interesting because at that time, I mean, I'd read Farseer, like, a couple years before I'd picked up Live Ship, and Royal Assassin was my favorite in Farseer. Assassin's Quest was not engaging for me. It wasn't bad, but it was just like, this is long, and I know it's meant to be long because that's how it feels for the character. Like, I understood the project, but, like, it wasn't fun, sort of thing. And I made a mistake of reading it at the same time as The Great Hunt. So, you know, I did stuff. So it was just a shocking, like, change from my experience reading Farseer. And it also made me be like, oh, I wish you would write more third-person point of view stories because this is very, very good. I don't need to be with Fitz all the freaking time. All right, so now we have the ones that, like, are kind of my top 3 because, like, they're also, like, favorite books of all time within their own right. The Best of All Possible Worlds by Karen Lord is technically the first book in its world. There are 3 books out now. I do have a series discussion about it. I've read this book twice. This book, I think I devoured in like 30 hours my first time reading it. It's just something where I loved it so much. And it's very, I think, unique. I don't know many books like it, I guess I would say, where we have a planet that has kind of been a refugee planet for a lot of people to come to, and it has a pretty okay way of integrating new cultures. And it has to, because at the start of this book, one of the main players of power had this huge genocide moment. And so they are coming to this planet to incorporate themselves, and it's not necessarily 100% assimilation. There's also, well, what is important to your culture that you want to try and keep? We do have rules for how we incorporate those things, and part of it is only the male population is left. So they're looking to figure out ways for people who are genetically compatible, because the human species has evolved into certain genetic pathways that are genetically compatible with their psychic way of life and also would be amenable to their culture. And this leads to people traveling around this world on this scientific team, and you just, it felt so cozy, but not in a way where I would be like, this is a cozy science fiction. Like, I do think for me, it scratches an itch that I feel like a lot of people say about Becky Chambers' works, but I don't get that feeling when I read a Becky Chambers' works. But here, we have our 2 main characters, Grace and Delanak. I don't know if I'm saying his name right today, because I haven't listened to the audiobook in a minute, but they are the 2 main leads for their 2 factions, and their friendship that develops into this just strong attachment and the different issues in their lives we get to unpack in these like episodic chapters. And that's another thing. It's like, I'm not always a big episodic chapter person, but this is episodic chapters as we travel from place to place and see all these cultures, and it just worked so well for me. And so I love it dearly. It was super strong. It made me very excited to read the Galaxy game, which I've also really loved. And then the 3rd book, The Blue Beautiful World, has been out. It's just so good. Next one should hopefully not be a surprise. And this is my favorite book in this respective series, and that is The Mask of Mirrors. The Mask of Mirrors is so good. I always say, if by the end of chapter 3 you're still wondering, I don't really feel it, I'm not having a good time, you can probably stop, because it's usually by the end of chapter 3 that us that get obsessed, we're obsessed by them, because you have met the Rook at that point. This is called the Rook and the Rose trilogy. And the first book, it has ballroom dance intrigue, which is just like catnip to me, and it's written by authors who understand dance and the communication of dance. And that's the thing, it's like, I don't want to read the exact pure ways and steps and stuff like that. I want to read how when you're doing a lead follow partner dance, what's the tension there and what are the subtle communications, and that's so good. So that's a big part of it. We have a lot of ballroom, nobility, court, intrigue dancing, and then we have this Batman, Catwoman sort of parallels with the Rook and our main character Ren, and we have found family, and we have Vargo, who I adore, and Vargo's kind of like this dude who's trying to make it into society, but he used to be like this criminal lord, so he's trying to be legit. Ren's a con artist trying to find their way onto a family's registry so that she can have stability. Tess is amazing. The Mask of Mirrors, The Rook and Rose, one of my, when you think of Angela, the YouTuber, what's one of her favorite series? People would probably say The Mask of Mirrors, Rook and the Rose. And there's a reason. This book, I've read it 3 times, and I'm obsessed with it every single time. This book makes me remember that reading is fun. It's like what I want from multi-POV fantasy. I really like this world. This world's really interesting and really well thought out. And the complicated people problems that are brought forth and set up because this is a colonized state do not go away. It does not fall into that trap of a trilogy where it's like, ooh, but shiny magical problem, right? We don't have to deal with the people problem anymore. It's like, no, the people problem is part of the magical problem, and we must deal with it in some way. And I do really appreciate when authors don't shy away from those messy thought experiments, because they're hard. If there was an easy answer, we might not be living in the world as we are right now, right? Like, it's tricky. So I adore that first book. It's just like every time I read it, it's like coming home. It's that spark of excitement. It's when you get to meet all of your favorite characters for the first time. It's just, I love it. And then the last one, this is like a book that has my favorite first line of all time, I feel. And that's The Fifth Season by N.K. Jemisin. I will say that I am one of those people who think all books are pretty equally strong in this trilogy. That is not the case for most people. I do have a should you read for this trilogy at once. I think I actually have reviews for most of the things that I've discussed in this video. But the 5th season, it opens up, like, basically, it's, you know, mentioning that the world is ending, but there's more important things to look at right now. And I'm like, oof. It's so good. I mean, you probably have heard from other people, you don't need to hear it from me, why 5th season and its resulting trilogy is a masterpiece. But this first book, especially when it came out, was really a highlight of Dying Earth fantasy. It was doing thematic work that I think we see more often now, but wasn't really happening in 2015 at the time. And it has these 3 perspectives, and one of them is written in second person, and you're hopping around and you're trying to connect the puzzle pieces, and it's very fun. I really enjoyed that part. This world, just like her prose, like she tells stories usually with narrative framings, and I love a narrative framing, but I don't think I knew that at the time. This is my first, I believe, book I read with a narrative framing, and I read it either 2018 or 2019. It was before I had a booktube channel. I read it because my friend was reading it, and I was like, ooh, that looks like a pretty book. I'll go get it too, you know? Like how I used to get books before I just would watch all the YouTube videos and just add on to my never-ending TBR. And this book, like, I devoured the trilogy, and then I bought the trilogy so my mom could read it. Like, this first book was just like, phew. Even though there is a plot device twist, whatever you want to call it, that people typically don't see coming. But I was accidentally spoiled to by someone's Goodreads review, which I'm still annoyed at that a little bit. But it didn't spoil it for me because, like, it's not actually super hidden if you know it's there. So I kind of got the reread experience on my first read, and that was super fun. And also, I do hold, and it's true here, that if a story is completely dependent upon a twist, it's not my favorite thing. And here it's like, the twist is fun. That plot device is very interesting, especially when people realize it. But for me, that doesn't take away anything from its strengths, and it's probably why I love all 3 equally, because the first book is the only time where you have that very big moment. The rest is more just reveals and consequences and character development and things like that. But yeah, these are my 10 favorite series starters to series that I hold dear to my heart. And yeah, let me know any other strong series starts you think would belong on a list like this. Any of these that I've convinced you to try and pick up, I'd love to hear that. Any have you tried because of my recommendation? I always like hearing that, because that's why I started BookTube, is to recommend books, because I love finding things I love and finding another person who would love it just as much as me. If you just want to leave an emoji to let me know you're here, ooh, leave a mask for the Mask of Mirrors. And otherwise, like if you liked it, subscribe if you want to, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.